Hey everybody, it's Dan Morey with Staffing Monthly, the industry's only digital publication to give you the best insights in recruiting, marketing, sales, leadership, and the technology and resources you need to be aware of to grow your staffing agency. And I am pleased to share that this is a very special issue of Staffing Monthly as we celebrate the release of what I'm calling the second book and what I'm sure is going to become a series at this point of the Lady Leaders Club. And if you're not familiar with what this is, there is a group of some of the absolute most successful women in the staffing industry got together several years ago now, and they wanted to share their journey. They wanted to share it with other people because that's who they are. They've made it to the top of the mountain and they want to turn around and look back and help the next wave of leaders up and rise this industry. And they created an amazing book called Together We Rise. And it was really this collection of their origin stories. And it was so well received. And this group of women got together and they said, hey, let's go further. Let's do something that's a little bit more tactical, that actually it's more of a guidebook that someone can get a hold of. And while it's certainly geared for women and emerging women leaders, it really is applicable to anybody in staffing and probably business in general to look at this book and say, yeah, that's how I can handle, or that's how I can actually get past a situation. And they're launching this book literally right now as we speak, called Rising with Courage. And I have one of the co-authors of this book that was also in the Together We Rise book, Lauren Jones from Leap Consulting, that's here with me today. And before I bring you on, Lauren, let me just, again, let me give you some flowers. Because if you
Okay.
don't know LJ and you don't know Lauren Jones, and you don't know Leap Consulting, I'm shocked. She's got an amazing presence on LinkedIn, but she's been in this industry for a long time. She has worked for some of the biggest companies out there, like the Remedies and the Volts, and you name it. And she's led some of these most senior positions, and she's been in this industry. And she got to a point where she understood this industry so well, but she also recognized that companies were not as embracing of technology as they should be. And she recognized it as a time when she knew that it was critical. So she founded Leap Consulting to really be that technology consultancy to come alongside staffing owners and staffing leaders and say, hey, let's take a look at your tech stack. Let's see how it overlaps with your human processes that deliver the unique value that you do to your clients. And let's make sure that you have the edge to be competitive. And that's really where LJ excels. And that's where Leap Consulting comes in. So she comes from this industry. She's an advisor to many of the very well-known vendors in this industry because of her thought expertise and thought leadership. So we're grateful to have her here today. And LJ, thank you so much. It's great to see you again here.
So good to see you. And those were lovely flowers. Thank you so much.
Well deserved. Well deserved. So I got to jump right into this. Obviously, you're
Okay.
super busy. Technology is, it's running rampant. People can't make, heads or tails of it right now. And before we get into that, for those people that don't really understand where Together We Rise come from, could you just set the table? Like, what happened that
Yeah.
led you to contribute to Together We Rise?
Yeah. So we had this little thing called a pandemic.
Yeah,
And
that happened.
uh, we were getting ready for SIA in March of 2020, and it was going to be March 9th. I had opened my firm on March 2nd. Timing is everything. And we wanted to get together to celebrate Joyce Russell's book, Cherry on Top.
Yeah.
And so Leslie did what, we normally do. We put a dinner together with a bunch of women. We were going to, celebrate the book and try and rise Joyce up. That's something, Leslie and I were used to doing together. And I've probably known Leslie the longest outside of Rana of all the lady leaders.
Yeah.
Um, and as we, spoiler alert, pandemic happened, SIA is canceled. And so we decided that, and I think at the time we had like 18 or 19 women that were going to go to the dinner. And we decided to host a Zoom call because that's what everybody else in the world
Yeah.
was doing, to get together and virtually celebrate Joyce and her book. At the end of the call, somebody said, should we like make this like a book club thing? Who knows how long we're going to be home? And so we decided to just continue having Zoom calls. And as we, as you know, uh, uh, as we continued to stay home and isolation sunk in, we just got closer and closer. And of course, we're all very competitive women. So we brought Joyce to the table, and then we're like, should we bring like really awesome female authors to the monthly call? So we brought Gay Gaddis. We brought, oh gosh, Dr. Stephanie Johnson. We brought, oh my goodness, I'm forgetting it, Erica Keswin, Heather Monahan, all of these
Wow.
women that we brought to our Lady Leaders book club, and of course, me being me, after like the second month, I'm like, we need a logo, we need a name, I gotta brand this, and then we ended up doing cooking classes remotely. We ended up doing remote yoga. We ended up doing a remote like fashion, like as we were going to come back into conference season and stuff. We're like, we have
Yeah.
no idea how to dress anymore. We have been wearing hokas and sweatpants for 2 years. And so we decided we had Michelle Prince, who's also an amazing author, come to celebrate her release of her book. And she said, "You guys have an amazing story. You should write a book." And we all kind of laughed at her, when she said it. There were a couple of us though that were like, "We do. This is kind of cool. Like maybe we could do something with this." And so the 15 of us, what ended up being the 15 of us, decided to write Together We Rise. We really did no coordination on the first one. We just sort of serendipitously had all of these chapters that, kind of dovetailed off of one another. This time we did a little bit more, we were a little more deliberate and, making it more like a practical guide that we could make a workshop out of to really kind of coach women through. So that's the genesis of Together We Rise. And rising with courage is just kind of the next step in helping other people rise in their careers and their lives and their families. You know.
So how did you, and I want to stay on Together We Rise just for a second before we transition, but so when you sat down and you're like, I get one chapter of a book, like people write books because they need
Sure.
multiple chapters. So you get one chapter, like I know is origin story centric, but how did you decide like what to include, what not to include? Like what was important to you to include because you wanted someone to hear that message? Like how did you land on that?
Well, it was pretty evident. My chapter was called Becoming. I had gone through, kind of a pretty, I've always been very, very open about, I'm very open, but I'm very private, all in the same. And I had gone through kind of a midlife crisis, I guess, if you will, or a crisis of life.
Okay.
And the things that I owned started to own me, and I became felt a little suffocated by life, and so we, of course, did what any normal person would do, and we moved out to a farm in a ransacked old house.
Completely
Um,
rational. Completely rational.
and yeah, totally rational. But yeah, and the farm just taught me so much. I mean, we tore down 14 walls. I mean, it took us 4 years to rebuild the house. I was gardening for the first time, taking care of farm animals. I was a city slicker. I lived on a perfect little cul-de-sac
Wow.
in my perfect little ticky-tacky house. And so telling that story of what that taught me, the first article I ever had that went viral was, everything I've learned in leadership, I learned from goats. And their tenacity, their curiosity, that so it was a really fun story to tell. I didn't have a great childhood, and so kind of telling this um, story of some disruption in my life and the death of my mother, and it was just a great time to share with women how to become something different. I was an entrepreneur very, very late in life, very purposeful. Now I look back on it as very purposefully, and then this next chapter is kind of a continuation of that.
So I love that you really nailed it with the title of Becoming. You faced a lot of adversity and you didn't let your roots define you. You didn't let the roots define the branches, which I think is pretty powerful story. And I got to believe that you've received some feedback from people over the chapter in the first book. So could you just share maybe just like kind of a summary of some of the feedback that you've gotten from people that read your chapter in Together We Rise?
First thing I ever hear is I had no idea LEAP actually stood for something. So LEAP stands for Lauren, Emily, Allison, and Peter. That's my husband and my two girls. So that's the first thing anybody ever says. I had no idea. I just thought it was about the frog. But the feedback that I get is, I was very raw in the chapter and very honest, and which I kind of always am. I didn't quite fit in a boardroom because I kind of say what's on my mind. And I didn't have some of the best leadership. Ronna Driggs was probably one of the best leaders I ever had in my career. And largely because she just kind of let me be me and let me do my thing. And that was so when you have people that are capable, just allowing them to do their thing. And so I do talk a little bit about that in the chapter as well, is that some of the examples of leadership that I had in my career were not great, but they taught me just as much about how I didn't want to run a business and how I didn't want to treat people as the leaders like Rana, who were amazing and gave me the freedom. And so you learn just as much from the bad bosses as you do the great bosses. And so that's the feedback is that I get is that sometimes we women are our own worst enemies,
Mhm.
and we don't support one another. And you've heard it's a cat fight at corporate America. Some of that, I'm in my 50s, and some of that was largely because there were one position for the token woman in the boardroom that we were all clamoring for.
Mhm.
And so some of it was, environmental or systemic, and some of it was just we weren't treating one another with kindness. And so, I was very scared to actually write about that because I didn't want it to be a women v women thing, but I did want to, acknowledge that we haven't all come from a place of having this amazing the lady leaders changed my life in knowing that there were women out there that would cheer on other women.
I love that. And I think it's a good segue to talk about the courage that you had to even muster yourself to share those stories. And even though being raw and direct is natural to you, it's different when you got to put it in print, something that's going to live in
Oh yeah.
perpetuity. So we get into rising with courage. And could you just tease a little bit? I don't want to give everything away, but what prompted you to contribute to a second book? Where were you coming from? Kind of what are you hoping readers get out of this chapter of this book of yours?
Yeah. I've told Sue Burnett, I'm like, this is going to be a three-peat, Sue. We're going to have a series of three books. I
I feel
want a
it.
green
I feel
one,
it.
an orange one, and a blue one right here, right? Like I want all the colors represented here. She keeps telling me I'm crazy, but we, keep putting them out there. So
Yeah, manifest.
Um, I what we saw was our ability to help other women. I mean, we sponsored countless. We every almost every dollar that we made from the book proceeds of the book went towards the ASA scholarship for women. And so what we saw was our ability to make a difference in the lives of women. Not every woman is going to be sponsored to come to these events. They're expensive. And so we saw an opportunity to help other women rise. And so we took it. And so the impetus behind doing this again is, can we do more good? Can we do more good than we did last time? And that's exactly what we're trying to do.
So what about you? So your contributions, like
Mm,
where's your chapter going? Like what, because you're in a different phase. It's 5 years
yeah.
removed. You've had tremendous success with Leap. The farm by all accounts sounds like it's going really, really well. The race business is
Yeah.
humming along, pun
Hmm.
intended. So you're in a completely different place than you were even 5 years ago. So what are you inspired to contribute, or what did you contribute in this? What's your focus again, without giving it away, but like, what's your focus in this chapter?
My chapter is called Courage to Evolve. And
Ooh.
mhm.
That's
I
good.
I
So I like it.
I
Becoming and then evolution. All right.
becoming and then evolution. Yeah. Again, I was a very late entrepreneur. And I made that decision because of my children, and I wouldn't have opened this company and put as much blood, sweat, and tears and nights and weekends into it if my children were home. I was at every soccer game and every school event and everything. And I wouldn't have done this. And I think women need to stop apologizing for the choices that they make for their families or their loved ones or their spouse or what have you. And I'm hell bent on making sure that we stop apologizing about those choices. We've sort of lost sight, kind of as a nation, of the core family, and women are at the center of that. And we make choices around our career that we should stop apologizing for. And I think, you know, politics aside, Ben Shapiro says it best. We've got to stop putting this pressure on women to have it all and be all. And you can have it all, just not at the same time.
That's right.
And once we kind of release ourselves of that and stop putting pressure on that, my chapter really talks a little bit about one of the biggest failures I had as a business owner. I want women to understand that evolution comes with failure, and we shouldn't apologize for it. We shouldn't make excuses for it. So whether it's a career change, a career failure, a career decision, to step away, right? I mean, think about an interview you could have with a mother who's, I have a teacher and a lawyer, right? What interview questions could you ask me had I stepped out of the workplace to ask me, how did I bring these two little leaders to, the world? That'd be an entirely different conversation, but we don't have those conversations with women about, what they've done at home or if they've taken a step away. And we don't ask women about failure that they've had, that, it gobsmacked me last year and nearly cost me my business. And but
What do you mean by that?
it it, well, we had a very public and very failed merge with another organization last year, and so I talk openly in the book about it. It was nobody's fault, and part ways as friends before you're not friends. And I write very openly about the lessons that I learned
Mm.
with that failure, and it's okay to evolve through failure, through decision making, through challenges. And I want women to stop apologizing for that. And so this courage to continually evolve and being okay with the choices that you've made is something that I want every woman to like come to the table with in confidence.
I love that. I love that. And I've got two more questions with the time that we have. One is specific to you, and one is I've asked everyone else in this issue. So the one that's specific to you, we'll start there because everyone else closed on the general question or the about this. But with the courage to evolve,
Mhm.
what is something that you hope for you? So if we could fast forward 1 year and you could predict the evolution or manifest the evolution for you, what would that look like?
I want I want more for my team. I want to be able to give them more and raise them more. And um, I think we've spent a couple years like just really growing this business and really working hard to set these repeatable processes and be the experts in our field. And from an evolution career wise, I want to continue to do more for my people. I am here to serve. I know my purpose on this earth is to. The first thing I ask any customer is, how can I help? And I know I'm put on this earth to help and make things better than when I found them. Whether that means technology or an agency or a person, that is my purpose. And when you have purpose, you have fulfillment. And so, my goal there is to help my team feel that fulfillment. We're very, very when I bring on a new team member, I'm like, what do you love to do? And I do my darndest to put my puzzle piece together so that every person is just doing the thing that they enjoy doing the most. And that does require sometimes I need to hire more people. But each one of my people is an expert in the thing that they love doing the most, which when they love doing it the most, the customers know they love doing it the most.
Yeah.
Just the difference in the way we're able to serve, and the way we're able to empathize, and the way we're able to deliver, makes a huge difference. And then personally, my evolution, um, you know, I want to continue to, I've got one that's married and I've got one that's, in her second year of law school. And so, I want to continue to see my children thrive. That's my purpose, on this earth, is to see my children be better than me.
I completely respect you for that. I think that's amazing. And so now we're gonna have you put on coach hat.
Okay.
We're gonna have you put on the coach's hat. So
Okay.
here's the scenario. I'm gonna give you an avatar.
Okay.
I'm gonna ask you a question, and I want you to answer the questions if you're talking to the avatar. Okay.
Okay.
So this is the avatar. This is the person. This is a young in their career, not necessarily age, but young in their staffing career, early manager, female leader, someone that's a bit of a rising star. They're coming out of a production role, and now they might have one, two, maybe three people reporting to them, and they're starting to take the reins and the accountability that goes along with managing the performance of a team versus themselves. But they still have an eye on progressing their career long term. So that's who you're speaking to. So in the thought of the courage to evolve, how would you tell that person, how would you coach that new leader in an organization how to evolve from being a producer to being responsible for team results while not losing sight of the fact that they want to continue to evolve into senior leadership someday?
I always said my job as a leader was to remove whatever obstacle was in front of my people. And so, this question, and you hear me say it in kind of every capacity, what gets in your way every day? If you're a new leader coming into a space, you need to find out what gets in your people's way. And your job is to remove those things, as much as possible. And if one of them is a training issue, we get them the training. If one of them is, a process issue, then we fix that process, right? But only by listening, doing more listening than talking, and solutioning, and waiting for your turn to talk, can you do those things. And so, I think I was a pretty effective leader, because I was always looking for ways to make my team better. And the only way you can do that is by listening and removing the things that are in their way.
How do you So I want to follow on this question because you mentioned that you didn't always have the best leaders. So sometimes you might be in a position where you have to evolve on your own. So
Yeah.
how do you channel that power? How do you get the support? How do you learn? Like how do you instill evolution within yourself to get better so you are best equipped to remove those obstacles for your people?
I think it does take a little bit of maturation, right? And a little bit of wisdom. But I wished that I would have asked for help earlier in my career. I wished that I would have, when I didn't have somebody that was supportive, that I would have sought outside resources, to get said support, that I would have asked somebody that I saw was successful and that I saw, was open to coaching me or mentoring me. And I was often very afraid to do those things for fear of what they might think, or they might not have time. And what if they say no? What if they do say no? Who cares? Right. I can say that now in my 50s because, no doesn't hurt. When I hear no, I'm like, so you're saying there's a chance? So I hear no entirely differently now. So, a little bit of wisdom helps. But when I look back and I think, could I've accelerated this wisdom that, I have today? I absolutely could have, if I would have known when to ask for help. And women are notorious for not doing that. So that's what I would tell people.
So ask for help. I think that's just great tactical advice. And anybody out there that doesn't know Lauren Jones, go follow her. She really is a thought leader in the space, a highly respected thought leader in the space, not just around staffing, but really how to evolve through technology, how to evolve performance and results using technology, but aligning it with people. One thing that I've appreciated in getting to know her and her approach is she doesn't lose sight of the fact that you can have all the best tools in the world, but it's still people that needs to use them. And she marries that together really well. So, Lauren, how can people get a hold of this new book, Rising with Courage?
So, well, at Staffing World, we'll be giving a host of copies out, but it will be
Woo-hoo.
available. Yes, it will be available on Amazon. If you're hiring me to speak, I always bring copies of the book, but it'll be available on Amazon and where books are available.
Amazing. We will get those links out here. And I want to do one last thing since you're actually the last person I got a chance to interview because of our schedules. So if you had to share one message with the rest of the lady leaders here in this video about this journey that you've been on with them, what would you tell them?
Uh, they have permanently etched their goodness into my soul. Um, they each one of those 14 women have each one of them have a secret power. And I can each one of them have contributed something, to my soul and my heart, and taught me at a very late age, that there are women out there that support one another and believe that women can support other women. And so I'm forever grateful to this circle of women, and I try and tell them how awesome they are all the time, which you see Women Crush Wednesday all the time. We love crushing on women. Our pledge, our Lady Leader pledge is I commit to one deliberate act a day to help another woman rise. That's a pledge we make every time, whenever we're speaking, whenever we're coaching. And that's what I would ask. And that's what these ladies have taught me.
I love that. And I love that what you all are doing to uplift this industry. And so thank you for that. Thank you for spending time here today. And folks, if you're watching this, go connect with Lauren on LinkedIn, follow her. She puts out tremendous content. She's a great leader in this industry and she is absolutely worth following. And now you know she's committed to do one positive act a day to help other women out. So if you feel like you're someone that might not have the best leadership and you've heard the advice to go ask for help, now you have someone that's a friend, that's an ally out there that would be
Right.
more than willing to help you on your journey. So, Lauren, thank you so much for being here and have a blast at Staffing World.
Thank you. And thank you so much for having me and distributing our message, evangelizing our message for us.
It's a good one to evangelize.